Hello everybody and welcome back to Operation Logistics, where we currently have a small issue going on, and let me just demonstrate that for you really quickly here. We'll just come on in here and purchase ourselves a bit of land, confirm, demolish, create route, select the route, zoom on out, and we want the route to go, say, here. So we'll go back into edit route mode, and we'll go here. Okay, so that looks great. And the fact that it did it that quickly is a good sign. We can probably optimize it a little bit further with, like, the index of calls in the cost calculation. But for right now, that looks pretty decent, right? Until we get down into here, and we realize, well, in actuality, in most cases here, it's not doing the get cost correctly. Because that's what forces it to take these kind of more circuitous routes through the road systems. Which is exactly what we want it to be doing. We do not, under any circumstances, want it to be doing this. This is not okay. Just passing right through all of the buildings. And the question is, why is it doing this in some cases, like up here, and down here, it's doing this, which I think has to do with our Manhattan distance. And then the question is, what about this one? Is this similarly Manhattan distance? Yeah, that looks like Manhattan distance to me. So it's only properly calculating this on the first and last world hex. So that's something we need to think about. And we need to be thinking, well, what's causing this? Let's just give that a little bit of thought here. So there are a couple of suspects. One suspect that I was thinking about before I started recording this episode is adjacent on road taking in a building hex. And the fact that this we just commented out and going off hex wasn't implemented. But this would be going off the biome hex, and that's actually working fine. It's going off of the world hex. But the final world hex is working fine, which is intriguing to be sure. And the question then becomes, well, what's different with the first and last world hex compared to everything else? And that's what we need to figure out. So let's go into our pathfinding here and just check here. So world hexes to consider, biome hexes to consider. That's all well and good. So when we are current.g plus building.getEntryCost current, which of course would be our from building. So building would be adjacent. Wait a second. Does building have to be adjacent? Yes, building does have to be adjacent. Okay. So then the G is current.g plus building.getEntryCost, which leads us back to, if we, that's nice. We don't need to know that, though, Electrum. You can go. No. Okay. VLC just wanted to notify us, and Windows 10 decided to throw all of the notifications all at once. Thanks, Windows 10. Okay, so I suspect the issue is in this get entry cost. That's the current theory. And it works fine within the first and the last building hex. Now, one thing I want to check here is if we go up to the final building hex and we come in here. Okay, that does actually work fine. I was thinking maybe this hex would be messed up, and then up here it would transition into doing it properly, but that does not, in fact, seem to be the case. And of course we've got these issues with width, but that's something we can deal with in a little bit. First I want to figure out what exactly is going on here. So let's continue looking. So I have to assume it's something to do with this. Well, one thing we can assume, get entry cost is only called on a neighbor, right? So one thing we can assume is if the from building hex, like if from building.location.world hex is not equal to our current location.world hex, then we can assume that we are connected via road, right? Because only roads connect. So what we could end up doing is we could do something like if from building.location.world hex is not equal to location.world hex, then we could simply return 1f. Like that. Reason being that we know for a fact that it should be connected if it's not on the same world hex, but it is a neighbor. We know that it should be connected via road, and this is all unimportant. And indeed, we should probably do this before doing any of this. So check if it's on a different world hex or biome hex. If so, we can assume it's connected via road. Okay, so we can then go ahead and toss in or from building.location.biome hex is not equal to location.biome hex. Because if that's true, we can assume the same thing. It's connected via road. And none of this then becomes important. And we can skip all of that and save ourselves a little bit of time. Not a lot of time, but a little bit of time. Let's try running that. I don't expect that that will fix the problem, but it will perhaps make it slightly better? Slightly better. It's the hope anyway. Okay. Time to load. Come on, Unity. Finish your compilation. There you go. Okay. One of these days it will finish. Maybe. There we go. Excellent. Now this is... in these runs, it's taking like 40 seconds to generate, which seems longer than it was previously. Although it's going faster now. The runs that I did this morning before I started recording just to familiarize myself with the issues were taking about 40 to 48 seconds to generate, which was a little odd. I remembered it as being like 28 seconds. Yeah, like that one's 35 seconds. Still a little longer, but not as long. Now some of that probably has to do with our while loops, and there can be some random variants there. But that's something we can look at addressing later on. So let's go ahead and pop down in here, and as usual, buy ourselves a little piece of land here, and demolish that, and create a route, and select the route, zoom on out, we'll head down. Actually, we'll head down up here so we can see slightly better. Edit the route, and there we go. So, we can see here that it worked properly here. Did it work properly elsewhere, though? As expected, the answer is no. It looks like it might have here, but I suspect it actually did not. I suspect this is just because of our heuristic. Getting almost a greedy best first algorithm, but it's not exactly that. So yeah, it's still not exactly working. Oh, do you see that? That's weird. This should not be connected here. This should be connected potentially here? Connects here, that's fine. That's certainly very interesting. We should go around and check those connections. Like, see here? It connects up here, apparently. Number 21. That could certainly have something to do with it. That said, I would expect... that it would connect up here in a funky fashion like this, and then take the road down here and exit like that. Which tells me that for some reason this isn't seeing a connection to here. But yet it clearly does when up here. Like, for example, here clearly sees a connection to here. Now, there's obviously potentially an issue with our hex connections, and that's something that we should take a look at, because that could be contributing to this problem. So let's go ahead and go into our world hexes here. And we are getting neighbors here, I believe. Let's see, where is our function that we wrote to get the nearest connection? Is that in building? No, is that in building hex? Grab neighbors is here. I'm not sure where I wrote that. Is that in world hex? Doesn't look like it's in world hex, maybe, unless this is it right here. But this is road generation. Maybe it's up above road generation? Generate biomes. This is grabbing off hex neighbors, right? Yeah. We're remaining in the same world hex. So this is just grabbing biome hexes, which we know is mostly working? 26, 32, 37, 10, 15, 21. And that's 10, 15, 21 there. So yeah, that should be correct. We're going off tile. Manager.get nearest entry point. Okay. It's in the hex manager. That's what we need. We need to be looking at that. So, world hex exclusion, world hex equals get nearest world hex exclusion. So we grab whatever the nearest world hex is to our position, excluding a particular world hex. So we do that via an overlap sphere and then iterate through. We check the tag to make sure that it's a world hex, and then we check to make sure that it's not our exclusionary object. And if that's the case, then we check the square magnitude. This can be optimized slightly by doing something like this. World hex col hex equals col.gameObject.getComponent world hex. So that way we don't have the two get component calls potentially. We have one guaranteed anyway, so this is fine. There we go. Okay, so then we return the nearest hex. Yeah, that seems fine. And then when we go down here again, where was that? This is get nearest hex right here. But we wanted get nearest hex exclusion, which is this guy. But then we also were working with create neighbors. Get random hex, yeah. We were working with get nearest entry point right here. So we get our nearest world hex, And then we set our nearest distance to mathf.infinity, our int3 nearest to int3.null. int3 current equals new int3 world hex.hex index. Get nearest biome hex within world hex, which I assume works similarly. Get nearest biome hex within world hex. Okay. Within .hex index, blah 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 blah. This should be reasonably quick. There's nothing going on here that's too unusual. So our distance equals position minus get biome hex position, new int3 within .hex index I -1. Yeah, that's correct. Square magnitude. If dist is less than nearest equals I, nearest dist equals dist, return nearest. So yeah, that should work properly. And then for int I equals 0, I is less than building hex manager.roadentries.count, I++. Current.building hex equals building hex manager.roadentries I.hex index. Float dist equals position minus get building hex position current.square magnitude. Seems fine. Right? Yeah, that seems fine. Then we just return the nearest one. Okay, I can see how that would potentially cause some issues. Some weirdness, but it shouldn't be causing what we were seeing. That's interesting. And I feel like we're no closer to knowing what's going on with the actual pathfinding there. I don't think this is actually super related. Like, this is an issue, but it's not really a high priority issue right now. Because it should just jump to the hex, the building hex, and then pathfind from there, right? I mean, the only way that it doesn't work is if it's not actually technically connected via road. But if that's the case, why is the first and the last one always consistently functional? We need to be looking at what we're passing in here. Realistically. So let's take a quick look in our building.cs here. And for get entry cost, we have from building. So when we call get entry cost in our pathfinding, we're passing in current. So we're passing in the previous hex that we added in, and then we are checking against the next one. So they're guaranteed to be neighbors. They're just not guaranteed to be on the same road. Interesting. So we need to be thinking about this in, I think, a slightly different fashion. We were on the right track for sure, because the question is, why does it work in the first hex and the last hex, but not any other hexes? What's the difference there? And I think the difference is probably in the actual pathfinding algorithm, right? But that works the same everywhere. Do we not set the pathfinding parent, perhaps? No, we do right here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to need to put a cut in here. I'm going to continue to think about this, and maybe we'll figure it out in the next episode. See you all then.